Welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on the art of possible in ITSM with GenAI. I'm really excited to be presenting alongside Jürgen and Harshad, who will do their formal introductions shortly. Just to remind everyone, and we have already started, the Q&A is at the bottom section of Zoom. So if you have any questions during the presentation, and also if you have any questions when we're doing the demo, please reach out to us on the Q&A. We will try to answer your questions during the actual demo, and then anything that's left at the end, we will take them up to live Q&A. So if you do have further questions, there is time at the end where we will be able to speak with you live. For now, you will remain muted. The other thing, there will be a poll that will come out during the session today. We're always interested in hearing back from customers. So we have a beta program that will be getting set up very soon. The great news is it's the latest stack and it's going to have the full integration and it will be integrated with AI Ops. So if any of you are interested in being part of the beta program, we would love to hear from you. If you can just answer the question with a yes, because we have all your details, we will follow up with you separately when we do have more details to share when that will go live. Other point is this is roadmap, so there is a legal notice if you can just take a quick look at this, and then I'm going to hand over to Jürgen, who is going to start us off and do his introduction and get us started. So over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. This is Jürgen Hauser. I'm Senior Director of Product Management here at BMC, and my team owns ITSM as a solution, Business Workflows, Digital Workplace, so the key products in our service management portfolio. And I'm joined with Harshad, who is owning ITSM on my team. So we've prepared an exciting agenda for you today. So I want to kick it off with talking about some key trends, what we see in general on the ITSM roadmap and the BMC Helix product strategy in general. Then I'm going to hand it over to Harshad. He's talking about the new innovations that we delivered last year and already early this year. So we had our 25.1 release already. And Harshad is then transitioning into the roadmap piece of this session. And as Sam already mentioned, we are wrapping up the session with a live Q&A. Okay, let's get started on the main trends and topics. So our service management, IT service management is really moving to what we call AI enterprise service management. So many years ago, we started with ITIL, but some of the areas are really driven by how can we power our service management solution leveraging AI. And most of our customers are using ITSM for non-IT use cases already, but in the BMC Helix platforms, there are better options like business workflows. So what do we see and how do we see an impact provided through AI? So one of the key things in service management is the omni-channel experiences. That's where our end users can reach out to the service desk, for example, request services, and they have certain expectations. We call it omni-channel because we don't want to force someone into a portal. We want to support channels in applications where users are, in Teams, in WhatsApp, text messages, etc. Right? And all of this is conversational experiences, obviously powered by AI, more specifically generative AI. Then the second area, well, our customers are using more and more applications. Data is exploding, right? We get loads of data, and how do you better understand your data, find clusters, anomalies, etc.? That is where AI is helping you. Then another topic that BMC is very keen on is service ops. That is where service management and operations management comes together and provides value add just because of that. Think about the probable cause information that we can show you in the incident screen, and that information is coming from our BMC Helix AI Ops solution, and that is using AI to determine the most probable cause of an incident. Now, our customers, BMC itself, we are driving faster and faster innovation, and DevOps approaches with frequent releases, agile development, sprints, etc., are another key area driving this. And if you have frequent changes, it goes back to a change that can be managed in ITSM. And together with a change, we have things like a change risk. So another change risk prediction, where we want to take out the manual steps, the self-assessment, and leverage AI to actually accurately determine the change risk. So another area where AI plays a key role. Last but not the least, right, vulnerabilities is a key area that we need to really manage and provide timely responses. So the faster we can execute across the board here, the better for everyone. Yeah, so that summarizes AI is a key topic here, and specifically, you probably keep going, Harshad. Yeah, the key trend when it comes to AI is generative AI, and we call it HelixGPT, and we are adding capabilities across the board in our solutions, and we're leveraging different types of Gen AI capabilities, conversations, summarizations, predictions, etc. And all of our product teams across the entire portfolio are redefining on how our applications are going to be used. And this is a significant part of Harshad's presentation. What have we already delivered? This is really important to take away from this session. We are not talking about futures. If you're ready to hop on the Gen AI train, you can actually do this with BMC Helix. You need to be on a reasonably enough current version, which is 23.304, maybe 23.303 to get started. And customers have done that. Customers are actually live on that technology. So it plays a key role in our strategy and in our product roadmap, as you will see later in this presentation. Last but not the least, I want to give you the high-level picture of our product strategy. Oops. Yeah, the high-level product strategy. The key is here in the center, what we call a fleet of agents, right? We are defining agents for different personas. And this is also a key thing to understand. The agents that we are providing are really targeted as a persona and what use cases a specific persona goes through. The employee navigator, as an example, targets the employee. That includes things like a virtual agent and functionality like ask questions instead of searching. The knowledge curator addresses the knowledge manager, knowledge workers who are tasked with maintaining an knowledge base that has to be as accurate as possible. The service collaborator, another key agent in our ITSM area, is helping the service desk agent. We will see demos and examples of that. The proactive problem manager is taking proactive problem management and taking it to the next level with GenAI. The same with Change Risk Advisor. Instead of looking at a change screen, the advisor gives you insight and helps you with your decision. I mentioned more accurate. Major Incident Manager is the same. I'll stop here. Insight Finder, App Builder as another key items here. Then on the upper right, key things to notice is that we do not want to be the number one or the premier area where our customers interact with. So Microsoft Teams is very high on our agenda, but also Copilot and Gemini. So we do not want to force you to switch to a BMC tool. Most of that is roadmap, but it's coming. The other thing is we're mentioning Azure, Google Cloud, AWS here. We have a bring your own model, bring your own compute approach here. Lots of our customers told us they already have, for example, a commitment to Microsoft Azure OpenAI, and they ask us, can we burn down against this commitment? Then another key thing is native data sources. We want to integrate and not ask you to copy data to BMC Helix. Think about having a travel policy on SharePoint, being actually able to use that. and not asking customers to load that into BMC Helix, whatever that means, or create a knowledge article with the content. Our agents reach out to SharePoint, Confluence, etc., and pull in native data sources. So that is the big picture. And now I'm handing over to Harshad, and Harshad is focusing in on the service management slash ITSM focus here. Harshad, take it away.
Yep. Thank you, Jorgen. So, as Jorgen said, so what I'll do is I'll just start with the newly released features, last year and early this year, which is 25.1. So first we'll start with the newly released features, and then I'll talk about the roadmap items. I also have a demo for these new features. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about one feature, we'll do a demo, and then I've got three new features to be covered with demos, right? So that's the approach that we'll take for the first part of the session, which is newly released features. And then I'll talk to the roadmap items, which are coming in the next 9 to 12 months. There's a poll which is coming up on your screen. I guess you can answer this question here. And while you are at that, let me just quickly um, go to the next screen here. Okay, so we had launched, HelixGPT powered agent assist last year, and this was for faster resolution of tickets or incidents, to be precise. Now, this is in response to the challenges that we are facing today in IT, and we hear about it from all our customers. And the challenges are around increasing number of applications, increasing application complexity, which comes along with the risk of not knowing how to resolve issues that are associated with niche or super niche applications, or even specific areas within those applications. Now, traditional search is one answer, but it is not the only answer, right? And what we have been hearing is that it doesn't respond to some of the challenges that our new age workforce, the Gen Zs and the millennials, the way they expect it to respond to. So here is where the agent assistance feature, from HelixGPT comes to the rescue. And what it does is that it provides your agents a search interface, which we'll see later in the demo, right? And this interface would provide you a summarized response that is, for the reported incident. So for any reported incident, you will have a summarized response. This, can be a summarization from one or many knowledge articles. Okay, and what's more is that, if you have further queries, you can again ask that in a very natural conversational way, and GPT would return answers that are in the specific context of your inquiry. So the goal of this feature is to reduce time spent searching through multiple results, provide a faster and more accurate answer, and which is fully referenced to knowledge articles or the original source documents. And again, this is to facilitate faster analysis, detailed analysis, also to make sure that the GPT engine is not hallucinating, which is one of the biggest concerns today that we have in the large language model world. With that, I think it's a good segue to launch into the demo. So I'll change my screens here real quickly. I'll just quickly ask if you're able to see my screen here.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So here is an issue. So this is your typical day in the life of an agent, right? So I'm an agent. I get this issue, which is an issue with a media service, which is reported by a customer called Corey Cooper, right? And the way I would go about resolving this issue is that I would try and first access some of these knowledge articles, which are here in the resources tab, which is, my first point, which is my first go-to resource, right? And again, there could be a lot of knowledge articles. You see, there are 101 knowledge articles that are recommended for this issue, right? So if you really think about this, if I really have to go through, all these knowledge articles, page by page, or at least the most important ones, it would take time for me. The other thing is that I would then look out for an SME, for an expert in this particular issue, I would look out for that expert on the floor and go and perhaps, ask him or ask her about this issue and seek their guidance, right? But these are not very time efficient ways. I mean, these are not very efficient ways to resolve issue within a very short period of time. So I think here is where HelixGPT comes to the rescue, right? So again, if I click on Ask HelixGPT, what it does is that it provides me a very succinct, a very summarized response to how to address this issue that the customer is facing, right? So it gives me a proper answer in terms of, okay, to address this issue, it is important to understand the severity and so on and so forth, right? And it gives me almost the solution out here, right? It also gives me the sources from which this solution has been derived, right? Now, this is one example of how this thing works, right? On a different note, let's look at some other issue, which is maybe an issue perhaps with MS Teams, right? So I'm looking at an issue with MS Teams here, and the same way, I think I get, step-by-step guidance in terms of how to resolve the issue with MS Teams, right? So I say, okay, I am told, close both the Outlook, open the run thing, type the following command, and so on and so forth, right? I can again see the sources from which the answer has been derived. I can also, kind of copy this response, which is here, and then use that in some other collaboration tool like MS Teams or whatever you have, right? Or I can use this tool to email this response to the customer, right? So I can just kind of send the customer this particular answer, hoping that it would solve his or her issue, right? So what I'm doing here is that I'm just sending this response to the customer. The email has been sent to the customer. And then at this point, I call the customer, but the customer says, okay, look, my issue is not just with MS Teams. What you've provided me is a very generic response. My issue is that the speaker, MS Teams, on MS Teams is not working, right? So then what I do is speaker not working. So I ask HelixGPT, this question. It's a follow-up question, right? So it started as a very generic question, and then if you look at a bunch of the conversations that happen, with your end users, they are cut and dry. So it's just a 10-second conversation in which the customer would say, MS Teams is not working. I've got an issue with MS Teams. And then when you send out them, some generic answers, they would come back and saying, it is not about MS Teams as such. It is about the speaker on MS Teams that is not working, right? Now, I get a very specific answer in terms of how to get the speaker working here. So again, I can basically email this response to the end user, and then I'm hoping that this would really solve his or her issue here. So I'll just send this answer here. So this is how Agent Assist would really help you to reduce the MTTR, to provide customers with more accurate solutions that are fully referenced in knowledge articles. Our goal is to reduce key people dependencies, key person dependencies, right? And to democratize knowledge and to have it in a way that can be easily accessible by all the service desk agents. So this is the main function of HelixGPT in this feature, right? So you've seen how the algorithm has chosen the most appropriate, the most relevant knowledge articles. It has summarized them and it has given you these insights, right? Again, we are not just resting on this. There is a lot more to come in terms of what we will be adding to this feature in the future. So it has started right now with a summarization of knowledge articles. In the future, we want to look at past similar incidents and then to look at the resolutions of those incidents and then provide a holistic response, which is a combination of knowledge articles and the resolution notes from similar incidents. So that would become much more effective. It would become much more holistic. And our agents, they can really rely on this particular response from HelixGPT to resolve the customer issues. So that's the key feature here. So in terms of benefits, it's a faster resolution, as you've seen in this demo. It is a more accurate response that is drawing upon a larger context of data. And this again is, this is grounded, right? So the context is grounded on your enterprise knowledge. It does improve the agent experience. It will improve the end user experience. And these are answers which could be trusted. So that's basically this whole tool, this whole solution that we've launched. The other solution that the other use case that we have launched, late last year is around global search or, ITSM global search. And again, this is more about conversationalization of global search. So you had the traditional search, and this gave you all the answers, all the results in a very traditional format. And in addition to that, we agents will now be able to ask questions or queries and then converse with ITSM in a more natural language style and get quick answers. Again, this would start with getting answers on knowledge articles, but our plan is to expand this to include all ticket data, all asset data, people data, and also to include third-party sources like SharePoint, Confluence, Jira. If you have a third-party monitoring system, you also want to include that to get quick answers in a very UI agnostic way. So our goal is to, answer the agent queries based on a global context, which is why we are right now calling it as the ITSM Global Search. Again, I think it's a good time to just show you quickly how this solution, how this tool works. So I'll just quickly here, so again, this is something which I'll just kind of do a refresh here and show you how this tool really works. So I'm here in Smart IT. What I'm really doing is I'm clicking on the search icon here in Smart IT. And then again, as we said, we'll have both the searches, right? We'll have a traditional search, which is the where you're doing your searches right now. But in addition to that, I'll also have a global context, right? And so I come on a Monday morning, I see a lot of VPN issues. So I just want to figure out what would be the best way to answer these questions around global VPN service. Why is it down? What could lead it to getting down, right? So I'm using this tool to get some answers on how do I resolve these, global VPN service issues, right? Again, as you could see, these are step-by-step answers in terms of how can I, really answer questions around the global VPN service. But as I do a more detailed analysis of, let's say, the incident that I receive, it occurs to me that it is because of an unsuccessful domain name, right? So what I'm doing is that I'm just kind of again entering this follow-up question in terms of, look, the VPN connection is failing because of an unsuccessful domain name resolution. Again, it goes back, it searches through the knowledge base or the knowledge repository, and it is looking for answers which is more specific to this context, right? The thing to keep in mind is that, look, it has maybe gone through multiple knowledge articles. But it has given you a step-by-step answer, right? So if you're an agent, you can use these step-by-step answers to resolve agent queries and, really just kind of save time, all around. So this is a way you can use global search. So today, the context here is around knowledge articles. But as I said, we want to expand this so that it includes data from incidents, from, let's say, assets, from people. It could be also from, let's say, a third-party source like Jira, or it could be from your SharePoint or Confluence. So think about this, as a scenario, right? So you come on a Monday morning and you see a lot of incidents for a particular service, right? So you see a lot of incidents for service X. So our goal here with this feature in the future is that as an agent, you can say, okay, show me all incidents for service X, right? Now, just keep in mind, so if you don't have this as a conversational tool, you will be going to a console here or a dashboard here, there, and you will be figuring out, all the incidents for that service. But with this, our aim is to provide you, all the answers in one UI, right? So you can say, show me all the incidents for service X, and then you can get all the incidents for the service here. This is a part of our roadmap or the future, right? And then once you look at all the incidents for this service, your next thing could be, show me all changes for that service, right? And then even if your change management tool is, let's say, Jira or a third-party tool, our aim is to be able to integrate with all the, third-party solutions as well in the future. So, instead of the agent trying and logging into Jira and seeing all the changes for that service, this will return you all the changes for that service, right? So basically what you're doing is that you're doing a change to incident propagation here in the screen, you're trying to find out the root cause of these incidents, which could be a change that was done on the weekend, right? So when you left office on Friday evening, you had this working perfectly. You had no incidents in your backlog, but you're seeing the incident in the backlog, and now you're able to do the change to incident propagation. And the last thing for you to be asking is, show me the service health for service X, right? So now you are doing the complete 360-degree correlation for that particular incidents or those incidents, and then trying to figure out if that was caused due to a change, if the change has resulted in the node or some parts of the topology, going down, and in turn affecting the service health, which is the reason for you getting so many incidents, right? So you're doing the entire 360-degree analysis here with this interface. And that's really the power of global search or ITSM global search that we want to unleash, this year, and uh, you know, uh, towards the better part of next year as well, right? So this is really what is coming up in this thing. I guess it's definitely going to be a very powerful and a very useful solution, right? The one thing that we want our customers or agents to interact with the solution is by giving feedback, right? So for every upvote or downvote on a response that you get, this tool, the algorithm is going to get better, right? So this is going to, kind of kick that feedback, learning process, the reinforcement learning, as we call it in machine learning language, and we are going to get better and better in terms of, giving you more and more accurate answers. So that's the way that we want to really design this thing and go about this whole solution. I'll quickly go to the third use case that we had launched again last year. And this was, this was with our focus to improve, change management for our customers. So this is the, AI feature that we rolled out last year, which is called change risk prediction. Jürgen talked about it. He touched about it briefly, right? And again, he also touched about the influence of newer practices such as DevOps and SRE and cloud and AI on ITSM. So, and what this translates is translates into promoting smaller and more frequent changes by product teams within large organizations or even mid-sized organizations. Again, today we see a case of ever increasing data sources, application complexity, and we see also non-adherence to processes. And processes for the change management area are very important, right? And we are even seeing worse. We are seeing fudging of data, and this leads very often to change failures, change rollbacks. And these are reasons that are cited by our customers, as grounds for bringing, increasing transparency and end-to-end visibility in the whole change process. Sorry. So Change Risk Advisor is that AI-powered tool, and our goal with that is to break down the barriers that have traditionally slowed down, change advisory and change management teams in authorizing requests for change. And the common complaint coming from, change coordinators or service owners is that the change approval board, they come in the way of promoting an innovation culture within organizations. And on the other hand, if you talk to change advisory boards or change managers, I think their main focus is to keep the lights on or to maintain business continuity. So, and then these are two teams that are constantly in conflict or competing in some way. And which is where our North Star vision is to really enable, more precise prediction, of changes with data from service, as you could see here, from service management and operations management. Um, Again, you know, this is the data which cannot be fudged. It's really the fact that this is the data which is depending upon what happened when you had a similar change in the past and what was the impact of that change on some of your operational variables, or what was the impact of that change on some of your service management variables. How is the service management variables looking right now? So this cannot be fudged. This is really based on real data. And your questionnaires could be fudged to get a low risk level. And you can kind of want to get away with that, but this is a data which is really can be trusted, right? So again, it starts with the simple change risk assessment tools. Again, as you see, which aggregates variables from across service and operations. into a single pane of glass. But I think we'll see in our roadmap slides how we want to really expand this feature to include a conversational interface and few more things like a change risk score. Again, this is a feature which I think a lot of our customers are really loving it, and I think it's a good time to give you a small demo on this solution. The launch point for this solution is our wonderful change calendar, right? So we've launched this change calendar just to remind you somewhere around 2 years back. And again, this is getting very good feedback from our customers, the way it has been designed. It's a new UI, a new way to design this change calendar. So again, you've got a lot of change items, you've got a lot of change requests here that you could see for this particular month, right? Now, you can also see collisions on this change calendar in a way that it is very intuitive, right? But coming back to change risk assessment, I can just click on a change request. I think I have to kind of re-log into this thing. It's re-sign on this thing. Give me a moment while I re-sign on this particular tool here. So again, this starts in our change calendar. And again, this is a new improved change calendar that we had launched a couple of years back. So what I'm seeing is that I'm seeing a lot of changes. I have the ability for an expanded filtering here. I can see a lot of changes also in the same change calendar. So coming to the change risk prediction, I just click on a given change request and I see the high level details of this change request, including the service that is part of the change request. I can also go and look at the topology of this thing or CI Explorer, but at this point, I'm more interested to look at the risk information from ITSM. So, how many changes were done to this service over the last 7 days, right? How many work orders did we have over the last 7 days? How many incidents? How many outages? And this is some sense of how stable this service is, right? So this gives you some sense of how stable the service is, how reliable the service is at this moment. On the other panel, I can look at what happened when you had a similar change request in the past and what was the impact of that on some of your operational variables. So did you have any past situations? It says no. Do you have any current open situations? It says no. Your current service health is okay. And this is something which it tells me that it's a low risk change, right? So as a change approver, I can really go and approve this change, knowing that it's a low risk thing. The point to keep here in mind is that when you did the questionnaire here, this was really assessed at a very high risk level, but the data shows otherwise, right? So again, this is the data that you can rely upon, right? So the data shows otherwise, and then I can be sure that as long as I am able to, manage the collisions and so on and so forth, I can just go and approve the change request. So this gives me a data-driven view of, whether I should approve the change request or not, which is very powerful, right? And then again, it is bringing the two teams together on a single page, right? So that's the real goal with our solution here, right? Is to provide better collaboration, better communication between these two teams. So I think we've seen some of the better solutions that we have launched last year. Yeah, and then again I'll come to this initiative around accessibility and localization. Again, these are critical initiatives that we are working on. Again, we are pleased to announce that our ITSM solution has achieved certification from Level Access. And for those you don't know, Level Access is a leading accessibility consulting firm, right? And their certification is based on very rigorous evaluations. So they evaluate, applications against 57 criteria, 57, web content accessibility guidelines or criteria. And at the moment, we fully support 35 of those criteria. And then for the other 22, we are in partial support, right? But again, we are committed to getting full compliance on accessibility. We are working to continuously improve, and achieve full compliance with all the criteria that is set out by this body. Also, we are making substantial investments in terms of internationalization and localization, right? So as part of this initiative, we've recently added support for Canadian French, Canadian English, and again, we plan to expand our language offerings in future releases, right? Again, this will really benefit our global customers, especially global multinational customers who have diverse workforces as we enable them to manage data in their preferred languages, right? So that's really what we are working on. These are really important initiatives for us here, at BMC. This brings me to some of the roadmap features that we have in ITSM. Again, I'll focus on some of the HelixGPT features that we have on the roadmap, as well as some of the functional enhancements as well that we have, on the roadmap as well, right? But starting with the HelixGPT ones, so again, what's coming up in the short term is this feature around, being able to summarize from activity logs to create drafts of resolution notes. So again, this is in response to the challenge that our customers today face. They often, they complain that resolution notes, it contains, boilerplate sentences like done or talked to the user or closing the incident, right? When there is a lot of information here on activity logs or work notes, right? And the reason for that is, our agents, they often multitask. So as an agent, I might be working on 6 or 7 incidents or even more at a given point of time. And the common complaint coming from that quarter is that I do not have time to really, write a proper or a meaningful resolution note. And just keep in mind that this is what is shared with the end customer when you resolve the ticket, when you resolve the incident, right? So what we are doing is we are going to generate a draft of resolution note from the activity logs. So we are going to use HelixGPT. The algorithm will go through the entire activity log. It would summarize from that and then generate a very succinct, a very summarized response here. Um, and it could be the likes of the fatal error was coming because of SQL 2015, and we have now updated that or upgraded that to SQL 2022, right? So it could be that sort of a very succinct note here that could be generated from HelixGPT. Of course, if you're an agent, you can override this auto-generated response. You can also, edit this, you can modify this, but it provides you an essential starting point, right? And whatever you, override or whatever you basically edit, our aim is to use that via reinforcement learning to better our models going forward, right? So that is a way that we can constantly improve upon the work that we have done and provide better outcomes, to our customers, right? Um, the other feature that is coming up is in the problem management area, where we want to use these close incident clusters in proactive problem management to also surface, unique problems within these clusters. So today, if you, kind of go back into proactive problem management, what it does is it provides you, clusters of similar close incidents. And the whole intention there is that you could analyze, frequently reoccurring incidents, and then you can initiate problem investigations, for those frequently reoccurring, incidents. But the challenge that we have heard from our customers, and we talk to our customers at every point of time. So we frequently talk to our customers. So our customers say that, look, if there is a cluster which has, like 188 incidents in this particular cluster, it might be highly nuanced, right? There might not be a single problem that would correspond to all the incidents in this cluster. So it can be highly nuanced. There could be 2 or 3 or even more than those number of problems in that cluster. And to find unique problems in this cluster is like finding a needle in a haystack, right? It is very, manual at this stage, right? Though we have automated the whole process of, identification of frequently reoccurring incidents, the feedback was that you should also be able to automate, finding unique problems in these close incident clusters. So again, here is where I think HelixGPT could help. Our early experiments in this space are highly encouraging, right? So, we've seen that HelixGPT can recommend unique problems with a very high confidence. And then again, you can use this to simply quickly create, new problem investigations, right? And then again, if you're a problem coordinator, this would really accelerate your job, get more things done, and get more done with less. And this is something which you can really use to also defend why you have been able to create these problems, right? So again, that's an important solution. That's an important use case that is coming up in the near future. Along with that, there is one more use case on the same line that we will be launching, which will be to enable knowledge creation, through this closed clusters, right? So again, resolution notes on these similar incidents can be very useful, because now once you have the resolution notes coming from activity logs or work notes, they could point you out in the direction of the root cause, right? And it could also point you out in the direction of the solution. Now, keep in mind that these are all wonderful things, but at the end, you want to kind of document these things. You want to convert them into a formal knowledge article, right? Because knowledge is the basis for you to reduce MTTR, to improve experience, and to achieve a lot of your goals within service desks. And our way of being able to disseminate knowledge is via this tool, right? So we are saying, okay, we can look at similar resolutions from these incident clusters, and this could be used to create drafts of knowledge articles. And once you do that, you're improving the knowledge IQ, knowledge quotient of your company, right? There are productivity gains to be gained from this. You're also going to increase the overall knowledge repository of your organization, right? And we've seen how knowledge could be used to resolve incidents in the demo earlier. The other features that are coming are in the area of change. So we've seen features on incident, we've seen features in problem, but we also have some of the features that are coming in the area of change. So we've launched change risk prediction, but what is coming up in the future is the ability to do a risk scoring on change, right? And this is to move away from ambiguity or interpretations of data to uh, clear guidance, right? And this is going to be really important for our customers, because the change risk score is going to be derived on 20 plus variables, right? Which includes the service, the criticality of the service, the CIs included, right? All your attributes of the change request, your documentation, if you have provided them or not provided them, right? What happened when you had a similar change in the past? What is the current service health? And it would have 20 such variables. So the higher the change risk score, the better it is, the better the chance of getting it approved, the change request approved, right? So think about the change risk score as a change health score. Again, we'll provide configurability in terms of change risk score. So, change teams can configure or can choose weighted scores for each of the variables, or, also exclude some of the variables if their current process doesn't support including these variables, right? So again, a very important solution. And one more thing which is coming up as part of the solution is the ability to then converse with the change tool, right? So, if you need straight answers in terms of should I approve the change or can I look at similar changes, right? You can really ask this to the tool and get quick answers, right? And, it really avoids the need for going to different tools, an interface here, a tool there, a dashboard there, and get all the answers in one place, right? At some point, we also want to configure, automated approvals, right? So if the change risk score exceeds a certain threshold, then the risk of that change would be low, and as such, we want to provide an option for change teams so that they can automatically approve these change requests. And this is because, today, as we talked about the influence of DevOps and SRE, you see a lot more frequent changes coming up, right? So a change manager or a change approver is, inundated with these, requests for approval. So, they would be dealing with maybe hundreds of these approvals, right? And if there are low risk changes, then they can use the machine learning algorithm to just automatically approve them, right? So again, this is going to be a feature that is going to be really important for our customers, right? Some of the functional enhancements that we have planned in our roadmap are around change freeze. This is again an important feature that we are going to launch, very soon this year. And just so that we are all synced up on terminology, a change freeze is a period of time, during which no changes are to be made to a system or environment, right? And this is done generally to reduce risk of disruptions. Um, so again, starting with the ability to create or edit a change freeze, users will also be able to see change freeze schedules in ITSM calendar. We'll make it configurable for users to define change freeze schedules, against change requests that are, let's say, in specific locations or that have specific operational categories or product categories, or if they are associated with specific CI. So it's going to be a very configurable way to actually define change freezes, right? Also, in terms of change freeze schedules themselves, they will also be configurable. So you can define a change freeze schedule as a one-time thing, or even as something that is recurring, right? So recurring change freezes are commonly for end of year periods such as New Year's or close of financial years. But it is also common that there are certain times during the year, that would differ in every year. So we have the ability to have both, right? There is also configurability to ensure how changes would be approved during these change freeze periods, right? So they might need additional approvals as some customers want, or you can strictly prohibit them during those periods, right? So again, the views from our customers are divided here. Some customers say we want, if there's a change freeze period, we want them to be strictly prohibited. And then there are other customers who say if our changes have to be approved in the change freeze periods, then we require an additional approval, maybe from, let's say, a person higher up in the hierarchy. Lastly, you can load change freezes using our data management feature and in bulk as well, right? So this is a feature that is coming up. It's something which is being very popular asked from our customers, right? In terms of the other feature, we are going to launch this post-mortem review thing. Again, a lot of customers know about this. This is where I think the newer practices are influencing ITIL, right? So things are shifting more towards the left, right? So after a major incident, after a critical incident, or even after a failed change, there is a request to perform an post-mortem review. So it brings teams together to find out the fault, the impact of that fault, to look into the root cause and the lessons learned, right? This is done largely in a blameless way, which is why it's called the blameless postmortem. Uh, we didn't have this feature as part of major incident management, but we will kind of roll this out very soon. The other feature that we are looking to roll out this year is around the classification of the impact on a change request, right? So again, today, the way the impact is classified, it's manual. It is left to a change coordinator to classify the impact. And again, this is prone to errors. It might be inaccurate. So that is where we would be automating this classification of impact, and it would trigger the automated impact analysis, which will look at all the CIs in the topology of the service, and if they are impacted or not impacted, and then based on the number of impacted CIs, it would determine the level of impact on the change request. So again, this is a very important feature. This would remove the guesswork that is today associated with classifying the impact, right? And our goal is to have a more scientific and explainable basis for doing so. And then lastly, there is a Kanban visualization, Kanban style of work representation that we are looking at, right? So again, the Kanban style of representing work is a very important way for our customers, right? It limits the work in progress for our customers. You can shift work from one swim lane to the other swim lane very easily. You can do things with less number of clicks. It's a very intuitive, graphical user interface. So again, that's something which is in our roadmap. And then lastly, we also have some ITSM, user experience improvements, largely from a feature parity perspective, from mid-tier to smart IT. So we've delivered the audit log capability last year, which was only available in mid-tier. And on the same lines, we are working to deliver the effort logging feature this year, as well as the contract console, contract management module, which was only existing in mid-tier. We'll also have some additional features on shared ticket console and calendar. We'll try and bring the templates from mid-tier onto smart IT, and we also want to provide a more modern interface for data localization, right? So again, these are things that we are really working on. Uh, so our customers do not have to really depend on mid-tier. It brings me to design partnership, which is an important program that we at BMC have, and it's really about collaboration with our customers, where we actually show them some of the future concepts and features, and we really hear about their needs and gaps. It's very important for us to do so. And then they also have the ability to participate in this whole session and to influence our early decisions. So if there are any needs or gaps or use cases that they have, we could, really design for that as well, early in the process. And I would say that this is a really good program. So if you're really interested to join this program, I would, request you to sign up and be a design partner, right? So I guess we've talked a lot. I want to be aware of time here and want to at least provide the last 8 minutes or so for any Q&As, for any questions
Th-
that you have.
There is a lot of questions, and I think what we're going to have to do, team, is take some of these away, answer them, and put them into the blog post as well, if that's okay. But if we start with Ahmed,
Mm.
I know you've asked a lot of questions. You were first off of the trot, so if you want to come off mute, do you want to ask your first question to the team? And I will start unmuting everybody else so we can speak to them as well. Can you hear us, Ahmed? I know he normally likes to talk. Maybe I'll start off with the question so I can go and start unmuting everyone, and hopefully he can come off. So his first question was, in case we have isolated environment in HelixGPT, agentic fleet is based on external internet access data sources, or is it learned by time based on the on-prem data sources or knowledge bases such as SharePoint data sources or any similar local KB? I don't know who would like to answer that first question.
Well,
Okay.
for
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. You're done. Sorry.
yeah, for a deeper understanding, we would need to go through more detailed architecture here. So the key is that I spoke about bring your own model and bring your own compute. We're using approaches like it's called retrieval augmented generation, where we have a vector database in BMC Helix and only temporarily send prompts and contexts to a large language model. So the large language model from your provider is not trained, and your sensitive data is not moved out of BMC Helix. But we would have to go into a little more details to deeply understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll have Ahmed connect with you. His second question was how the license calculates for having any of the agents in our on-prem deployments.
In general, the agents are licensed if you purchase the what we call the service management bundles. There is a service management standard and a service management advanced bundle, and they come with an entitlement for agents. You can check this. We have the Helix subscriber pages that details that out. In summary, the employee navigator, the service collaborator, and the change risk advisor are available if you're on service management standard. The knowledge curator, for example, is only available if you're on service management advanced. Like any licensing question, if you go to the Helix subscriber pages, that's your single source of truth for licensing. Having said that, for on-prem, I can confirm that what you can see on the SaaS pages is also applicable to on-prem regarding Helix GPT. So we will keep this in close sync to not have any differences.
Thank you, Jürgen. I'm just looking down at a couple of other people's questions because we can cover his other ones later. So Francois had a question. Are there any plans to build a service level management type agent monitoring and compliance? And Francois, if you want to come off mute to say hello, feel free.
Thanks. Hi, guys. And yeah, I think some of my questions was already answered. Um, and yeah, thanks for answering the contract management one, because I was sitting in a little bit of a predicament where I have to present asset management to a customer because that's the primary request, and I had to switch between the mid-tier and the smart IT PWA view. So that is creating a bit of challenges to sell. But being that said, if we look at service level management and asset management, what are the plans around that? As I understand it, there's not a lot of focus on that, and it's a key component, I believe, as part of ITSM. That's the first thing. Apologies. And the second question is around mapping the agent versus the product. If I, as a customer, buy ITSM on its own, what agents will I get as part of that? Is there some kind of map that provides us the visibility of that? Because not all customers are going to buy AI Ops and Discovery. They might just buy ITSM. And when I look at some of these agents, it's very dependent on service monitoring, bringing the scores, discovery, looking at the modeling. There's a lot of dependency, in my view, on the ITOM stack. And I just want to understand, is there a mapping that one can use? I'm coming from a little bit of a pre-sales perspective. So those are the only two things I would like to get answered. Thanks.
Yeah, the mapping was something I answered before. Harshad, I think you're sharing the screen.
Yeah,
Can
so
you
in
stop sharing and
terms,
jump to the Helix subscriber page? Stop sharing and then open the
yeah,
Helix subscriber page.
sure.
Or you can just pop me the link if there is something already. You don't have to show. It's fine. If you want to save some time.
Yeah, I think it makes sense since this is.
No, that's fine. You can just share the link. It's fine.
Francois, did you have any other questions that you wanted to cover off? Because I saw there was one more that hadn't been answered around the product SKU. We can come back on that one.
Yeah, I think that was the one I just answered.
You won the answer. Okay.
Yeah. And then
Is there any others?
Oh, no, that's all.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming on live as well. Okay, so another question was from Dinesh. Are there any plans of integrating HelixGPT with Developer Studio or Innovation Studio to generate code templates?
The answer is broadly yes, right? And then again, we do have some sessions coming up on that as well, right? So I would say look out for those sessions to get more details on that, right? But the answer on a broad level is yes. So, HelixGPT is going to be part of our, IS platform. And, the North Star vision with that is for our customers to be able to, help with creation of apps. So the answer is yes, but then again, look out for that session. I believe there were already some sessions done on the role of HelixGPT on IS, and I'm not sure if there are some upcoming sessions as well on that, but that's an exciting space to watch out for.
Thank you, Harshad. I'm sure I'll work with the IS team as well, because I know between all of the product managers, we try to get a lot of content out, but I'll take that away as an action.
Samantha, sorry, it's Francois.
go on.
I apologize for interjecting.
That's okay.
There was one question I had around the fact that HelixGPT is only available as part of the service management bundles. How do we approach a customer if they already purchased, let's say, Service Desk or Service Optimization, and they want to use HelixGPT? They are basically now forced to migrate to a service management bundle license, which comes at a much higher cost. Is that not providing a bit of a, and maybe it's not the forum to ask this question, but I just, it's maybe just a comment, is that I see that it's going to limit customers of using the tech, I'm not saying forcing is probably not the right word, but directing them to buy a bundle. As I understand it, HelixGPT is just available as part of the bundle licensing.
Correct, and
So
that's
maybe-
BMC's strategy, right?
Okay.
We have lots of customers on outdated pricing models, and
Okay.
well, we did research in 2023 on how we should update our licensing, and these service management bundles are basically the result on that research.
Okay. All right.
BMC was always seen as a bit complicated on the licensing side. if
Mm.
we receive feedback from customers and product analysts like Gartner, Forrester, etc.
Mm.
And we were acting on that.
Okay. Understood. Thanks, Jurgen.
Mhm.
Thank you, Francois. We've got time for one more question. So I can see one from Zachary, which was for knowledge article generation. Would drafts be able to be made for historical incident clusters or only clusters going forward?
So the question is around, can drafts of knowledge articles be made for historical incidents or also for incidents going forward, right? If I have to rephrase this question. Uh, so the answer is both, right? So if you have historical tickets, you can use resolution insights to create drafts of knowledge articles. And then let's say you don't have knowledge articles for your current incident that you're working on, right? So you can always start the process of creating those knowledge articles, via Agent Assist, because it might be possible that you don't really have anything on which you would get the resolutions or help with the current incidents. So we are working on both these fronts, right? And our aim is to, create these knowledge articles or drafts of knowledge articles in a very holistic way, right? When you have some distilled information that comes through as resolution notes or resolution insights, and also when you do not have any information, other than the ticket data. So that is the approach that we are taking here to create those drafts of knowledge articles.